Felicity Urquhart and Josh Cunningham are two of Australia's most beloved and prolific songwriters. Felicity has recorded several albums and EPs as a solo artist and as a member of the wonderful Bennett Bowtell and Urquhart, winning 13 golden guitars along the way. Josh Cunningham is a founding member of the Waifs, who have released 10 albums over 3 decades and won multiple ARIA awards. Together, Felicity and Josh released the album The Song Club in 2021, and it was nominated for an ARIA and 4 golden guitars, and won the ARIA award for Best Independent Country Album. And it's just a fantastic album, so everyone should listen to it. Hello, Josh, and hello, Felicity.
Hello.
Hi, nice to be with you.
Lovely introduction. Thank you.
Well, I had to actually curtail it because you both achieved even more than that, but, you know, trying to get it into a short paragraph. So we'll find out about your songwriting craft and how you got to have all those awards. And actually, songwriting brought you two together in the form of Song Club, which was run by the Nashville-based Australian Sam Hawksley. Were all the songs on the album The Song Club actually created in the Song Club?
No, not all. There was a couple that we wrote over a cup of tea. And but the majority were certainly the Song Club. And it was we thank Sam because he did a great thing. It came at a special time when we needed to have a creative outlet during that horrible time of everybody's life where we were all just feeling like our heads and our hearts were disjointed and our stomachs. I know I certainly felt really weird. And at least writing a song and connecting to our friends in the songwriting community, it felt like you still were yourself some way, amongst all that horrible time.
Yeah. And there were rules to the Song Club. It was a 1 prompt a week and you had to deliver by a certain time. And I did hear someone else say that people could get kicked out of Song Club if they didn't deliver.
Yeah, you got 1 week's grace, and if you missed a second week, then you're out. And there was a long waiting list of people, just waiting for their moment to enter into the club.
Right.
So you couldn't miss more than 2 weeks, and that was the consequence. So I developed a steely resolve to just stay in the game. So there were weeks that I turned in stuff that I wasn't exactly proud of, or wasn't the best work by any means. But as long as you got something in, you were safe for another week. So.
Yeah, you did a year or just over a year.
Yeah, I did a year. It was just the part of me that just doesn't want to quit that kept me in there. It was a love-hate relationship. It was certainly a different way of writing songs. I've never written in that way before, and it was really good for me because it was beyond my comfort zone, and I got a lot of songs that I never would have got had it not been for that experience.
Yeah, it's interesting what that suggests about having not just the structure of the Song Club, but the threat of the punishment in terms of getting you to produce. So have you ever considered maybe, introducing a punishment of some sort into your own songwriting life now to prompt you to write songs when you need to?
Well, I often used to think, because the weekly thing was just too much. I mean, there are people that I hear talk about writing, they write a song a day, or sometimes more than one a day, and I can't really imagine how you could possibly do that, but 1 a week felt like a lot. Right. And along the way I kind of suggested to Sam, why don't we just go back to 1 a month? Like that would be really great, and then it eases the pressure. And and I've thought since then that it'd be good to maybe even just Felicity and myself, or a couple of other friends, and without consequences or punishment, just say, look, here's a prompt. Let's all try and churn out a song over the next month. And, if someone was a week late, that doesn't matter.
But we haven't.
So because you're too busy. I think that's
the thing. So the deadline does seem to make you, put it in there, and you'd record your song on a phone, or some of the guys actually would record full studio versions of their songs. And I'd have the kids in the background doing homework or something, and there'd be noise, and or the dog would be barking or something.
The roosters next door. There's roosters on 3 different sides, and they all are kind of vying for who's got the best crow. And I often would get comments because you listen to each other's songs each week. Right. And people would write back and go, oh, there's the rooster at it again.
Yeah. And then Shane Nicholson would have his beautiful studio, lovely sort of, ready for an album version. And same with Sam and Phil Davidson. He'd make his all sound schmicko too. So, yes, there was a lot of chaos on certainly my recordings. I know that much. And you'd hand the lyric into, and nobody judged. It wasn't like you got a mark out of 10 or anything, but it was... you just really wanted to deliver something of at least someone's time to sit and listen or read for a few minutes. And yeah, it means a lot.
Yeah. Well, and of course, look, it's arguable that the two of you as a writing partnership and a life partnership is the best thing to come out of the Song Club, because it has been this incredibly fruitful, creative association. I wonder if Sam's ever, acknowledged that and said, you two are the best example of Song Club.
I'm not sure they're the words he's used, but he's certainly happy for us.
He was definitely trying to get us back into Song Club, each of us again. And he made the concession. We actually did rejoin for about 6 weeks, about a year ago. And he said, you can write together.
Yeah.
So we got a few songs as co-write.
And then we were touring again.
Yeah.
So it was a bit hard to keep it up, but it certainly is something I would recommend any songwriter to put their hand up and be brave. Like there's certainly an element of having to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Because even myself looking back at some of the songs, it's like, oh, that wasn't right. That just didn't work at all, that line. What was I thinking? But I didn't have a lot of time to think at midnight or 10 minutes to midnight before I sent the song. And you'd look at it later going, oh, that was a bit shabby. I could have done much better than that. That was it. Make the deadline.
Now, Felicity, you've written solo and so often in collaboration, not just with Bennett Bowtell and Urquhart, but you also write with people you don't know, such as at the DAG retreat in Nundle, where I think names are literally pulled out of a hat for you to have co-writing partners. I'm wondering what collaboration offers you as a writer.
Yeah, it's lovely when you hear someone else's story and they always come from a place that you don't. So whether it's how they work a melody or the way they play with chords, there's always something amazing to gain from someone else's brain. And just being in a room with someone else that is inspired by songs and writing, it's a lovely space to be in. So I can't say that I've ever had maybe one bad experience in Nashville once. And that's the only one that I could ever recall being uncomfortable. Apart from that, everyone's just there for the right reasons.
Yeah, right. And Josh, you're in a similar situation, writing solo and collaborating. And in fact, the latest single the two of you have released together, Unsteady, was written by you alone. I'm wondering if you find that the songs you create solo are different in tone or otherwise than the ones you create in collaboration.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I've done very little co-writing. Even in the Waifs, we never write songs together. So for all my life, songwriting's always been a real retreat. It's a very personal space, and I've felt generally I felt pretty uncomfortable sort of sharing that with another person. I mean, Felicity and I have written a few songs together, but that's a different story because personally we're connected as well, so you feel a lot more safe and able to be vulnerable. She knows everything about me anyway, so there's nothing really that's going to come out in the song that's going to be too revealing. That she wouldn't already be aware of, but it always, especially in the Waifs, like we always lived in close quarters for a lot of the years, and so the chance to sneak away and write a song was your chance to get a little bit of space away from everybody. So there was this sacred little bubble that I would enter into, and it's just, I don't know whether the habit just forms, but I do prefer writing on my own, and I feel like the best songs that I write come from that space.
And when it comes to inspiration for songs or inspiration in life in general, I guess, who or what inspires you? So Felicity, I'll start with you.
Oh, it's always whatever's on your heart. My life experience and now being a mother, those sort of challenges and highs and lows, the emotional content all comes into play in a big way. And when I was a kid, people would say when you've got to get a few years on you before you can really have something to say or at least understand what the lyric content is about. And I guess they're absolutely right, because I think I've had a few experiences now and I do understand, and I probably have been guilty of witnessing or listening to songs that I think, oh, they're quite young, they don't really know what they're singing about there yet, or I'm not believing it. But certainly I understand pain, and I understand love, and I understand real joy. So they're some of the things that I certainly have repeated themes in my tunes.
Mm. Now, Josh, the single Unsteady was inspired by you seeing a white feather on black sand. So that's an image that inspired you, but I'm wondering what else has inspired you in songwriting?
Yeah, well, I mean, in that particular case, it was a very striking image, but it instantly resonated with me because the point of my life that I was in, I felt like I was surrounded by a vast expanse of blackness, just like that white feather was. So I very much identified personally with it. Um, and usually it's the personal experiences, like the difficulties that you go through and the joys that you go through as well. You know, I've had a good friend has described her songwriting process as, you know, find the thing that you feel the most strongly about, you know, the thing that's the biggest in your heart right at any given moment, and try to wrap language around it. And
Nice.
yeah, so that's kind of, I always feel the best songs that I write come from that sort of place.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would love to be able to do would be better at writing, um, you know, narrative songs that aren't necessarily about my own personal experience, but if you read a historical account of something, or if you you know, just hear somebody telling a story and go, oh, that's a great tale, I'll try and, you know, put some of those ideas into a song. I'd like to practice that more. I've got a few songs that I've written like that, but I always admire that skill when I see it done really well in other songwriters.
Yeah. So, Josh, which songwriters, I guess, or which songwriter performers inspire you or have inspired you the most?
Um, well, I don't know if it sounds kind of cheesy to say, but it's hard when I look at my major influences over all the years I've been doing music. It's hard not to list Donna Simpson and Vicky Thorne from the Waifs, because, you know, we actually started writing songs. None of us were songwriters, and we started playing music together. And eventually, I think we had one song which was just not very original. It was a 12-bar blues song, so it wasn't like a groundbreaking original thing. But people that came to our shows really liked it, and so they encouraged us to write songs. And so the whole exploration into songwriting was done in the context of, you know, living life with the girls,
Right.
and we all sort of explored that. I think we had a go at writing a song or two together and realized that no, it doesn't really work that well, and the better songs we were coming out with were separately. But all the same, we kind of developed and grew as songwriters in that close proximity to each other, and we were hearing each other's songs along the way and being inspired by those.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard not to kind of cite them as major influences. And then the other big one, and the girls were very influenced by Bob Dylan as well. You know, their father used to strum, you know, Bob Dylan songs on an old guitar around the campfire at their fishing camp as kids. That's how they grew up. So they sort of absorbed a lot of Bob Dylan influence. And you know, and I had as well, I had my own kind of story of loving his music, and then we connected and had a common love of that, and we ended up getting to play with him as well along the way, and get to witness
I toured America with him.
Oh my God.
yeah. So I remember standing side of stage every single night for about 40 odd shows, and watching Bob Dylan do his thing. And you know, I think some people don't like Bob Dylan or his voice, but I think anyone that does music is influenced by him directly or indirectly, because you know, there's so many people that have been so pivotal and influential in the story of modern music, that Bob Dylan's influences looms large over all of it.
Yeah. And Felicity, for you, who's been an influence?
Oh, it's so lovely hearing Josh talk about the girls, and internationally, people like Dolly Parton. When I was a young girl, it was just, how do I be like Dolly Parton? How do I do that? How do I write those songs? How do I sing like that? And how do I be as happy as her? You know, it was an incredible thing as a kid to have her as such a hero. And then locally, it was early days, particularly in Tamworth, people like Rex Dallas. He was a really big figure for me, and we'd get to go and see Rex play as well. And then we would listen to John Williamson records on family holidays, and we knew every word of every song, my sister and I, would know what track was coming up next on the cassette before it started, and you'd start singing it. And yeah, Willow was a big influence. My style of writing, though, wasn't probably like, probably leaned more towards Dolly, I guess. And then as growing up, getting the opportunity to go out and see gigs myself in Tamworth at the festival, and seeing KB perform and The Flood was like, wow. And getting to actually sit in a room and co-write with KB and Lenny, just beautiful, a sensitive writer that understands so much more. And I guess that being such a taken under his wing, I suppose, in a sense, it was just lovely that KB would never dismiss anything that I'd suggest for a lyric. He was always open-minded to everyone's opinion and thoughts about it, and it had a great way to massage and move a song in a direction that was like, he totally did that, and it totally sounds way cooler now because KB could do that. But he never made you feel bad about what your suggestions, even though they may not have been that great at the time. But I've learnt a heck of a lot from KB. He's such a generous musician in many ways, in many areas.
So when you have an idea for a song, I imagine, given that you do play shows, you're not necessarily in a room waiting for the muse to turn up, but do you have a standard process when you have an idea? You think, okay, the next step is I'm going to jot that down, I'm going to sit with the guitar, I'm going to write it out, or does each song have its own way of coming into being?
Yeah, they're always unique. I guess one of the modern marvels is what is it called? Voice memos on the iPhone. Like, that's always a good way of capturing an idea. In the past, I've had all various little forms of electronic gadgetry, little mini disc recorders or other Zoom recorders or whatever, along the way. But I always enjoy going back home, and if I'm digging around in old boxes and find some old
handwritten
lyrics in books, and that song. And then you can't remember what the melody was like or what it sounded like. But yeah, it's always good to jot the idea, record the idea somehow. Otherwise they can go. I mean, I swear I've dreamt lyrics and dreamt songs in the middle of the night and kind of woken up with this great idea or even part of a song and thought, oh yeah, I'll remember that in the morning, and you wake up and it's totally gone. But you just got to get it down somehow. And the best thing is if the song comes complete. Sometimes if you can sit down in the moment of inspiration and get the full song out, like it might get hammered into shape a bit more down the track, but if you can get from start to finish the complete idea formed, then that's gold.
And Felicity, are you a voice memo user?
Yeah, and I even used to, back in the day, ring the old answering machine and leave an idea on the machine. Sometimes if I was if that was the only way that I could, think of, I need to record that idea. I'm hopeless. I forget things like that when it comes to a melody. Josh is really good though. He can remember melodies. I'm very impressed with your skills with that. I've told you that. Anyway, I have to have it written down or the melody idea recorded. And it can be, I'm probably more, it's got to be, okay, I'm going to do some songwriting today. I've got a space, I'm going to knuckle down and do that, or I'm at a songwriting workshop space at the DAG. Great, I've got some ideas I'll take there, or if we're planning a bit of time, we should write some songs, and we were doing that. We haven't for a while because we've been working, but it's it is nice to be able to strike when an idea comes to you, but it's not as easy as that always.
But you're in good company with the answering machine, because I remember reading years ago that Keith Urban would do that. So yeah.
There you go.
Now, if there's someone watching this who's out there and dreaming about being a songwriter and they are not sure where to start, do you have any tips? Josh, maybe I'll start with you. Do you have any tips for a hopeful songwriter about how they should start? What's the first step?
Oh, goodness. That's a very hard question. I mean, I think Felicity might be better poised to answer that, because working at things such as the DAG, she's got a lot of those kind of people coming, looking for that, wanting to get started in that world. I mean, the two of us actually, after the Gympie Muster last year, we did a little mentor program with some local kids in Gympie at the Country Music Institute there. And so we each got kind of half a dozen kids, and we all had to write a song together, and after 3 days we put it down as well. So that was a really interesting process. I'm not sure whether this is the right way to, if there's an official kind of protocol, here's the rules, here's the method, here's the official way to do it. But I just tried to get each of the kids to sort of, open up and that idea of what's on your heart, just get that out on the table first, brainstorm and is there a common theme when it was a multiple, group of multiple people there, like what are the common things that are coming through here, and then try to corral that into a direction and letting each person sort of have their own contribution and have their own voice in it as well. So I think that's the thing, like writing songs is really, I think at its best, it's a person bearing their heart and being really vulnerable and honest. So if you're not able to tap into that space and expose yourself in that way, then maybe songwriting is going to be a bit elusive. So that's probably the thing I would say, like connect with the thing that you really feel the most deeply about and try to put it into words.
I think if someone's keen to have a go, then run with that. If you've got a little sparkle, then you can write a song. I think if you're looking at a blank, I love paper. I think writing on paper is really nice. And I think doing a free write is a good way to just get ideas out. That's with kids, or anyone, but I've done a lot with younger kids under 20, and it's always great to just say, okay, do a free write about, pick an object in the room and just write about it. What do you feel about that object? Or what do you think it feels? Or just random sort of thoughts. And then away you go for a couple of minutes and you've got words on a page. Look at that. That blank page has got words already. So they've already gotten over one hurdle of thinking, I can't write, and I'm looking at a blank page. So anyone can do that. Sit there with a cup of their favorite drink. I love a nice cup of tea, and sit there and away you go and start. Okay, the brain's working, about thinking of lyrics. And now, is there anything in there that jumps out? Was there a nice word there that might spark another idea? So there's a lot of ways to get people thinking creatively, I suppose. And then if you're stuck, go to the bookshelf or go to the magazine rack, look through some pages and read some headlines, or read a few pages of a book that you love and go, oh wow, I love that writing style there, I love that phrase there, really speaks to me. Why does it speak to me? And ask yourself some questions, and then maybe it might set you off on a path, or it might give you a title of a song. And I think to not be too critical of yourself is really important, to have critical eyes when you've got something down and tighten it up, but be kind to yourself. I think we're all can be a little bit too hard at times, but at the end of the day, you're doing something that's got a creative spin, and you're having a go. So be kind to yourself.
That's lovely advice. And speaking of advice, is there any great advice that someone's given you, or that you've seen being given to someone else, that you thought, that's pretty good, I need to remember that?
Well, I guess, not trying to be something that you're not is always a good one. I think people can always sniff it out if you're being contrived or not being genuine. Especially when it comes to writing songs. I mean, a song that comes from a very deeply felt place, that's very personal, often has a much more universal resonance, because the things that affect us that way affect all of us that way. So if a songwriter can capture it and put it into words, and especially when there's the powerful component of the melody along with it, really can kind of hit a very deep place. And you can only really write that way from your own personal experience. So being true to who you are and what your experience is probably advice that was given to me when I was, along the way in various moments. And whether or not it was so much, hey, let me sit down and tell you what you should do. When I've actually been successful at doing that, and people have come and said, hey, I really appreciate that quality in that particular song, or as a general quality of the way you write songs, when you hear that feedback, then I guess that constitutes advice in some way. You feel like, oh, well, that's a good track I'm on. I'll try and stick with that.
Truth is a real connection. People I think you can see through something that's really made up and doesn't connect.
Mhm.
I think connecting with people is really important, and self-editing is a big one. Go back and then go, how can I make that say what I really need to say better or tighter? And also for those that don't play an instrument, because there's a lot of writers that go, oh, I'm a writer, but I don't know how to play piano or guitar. But there's ways to make melody, music out of your hands, out of the back of a cardboard box, or be creative in other ways. There's a drink bottle, that a shaker, or I always think that that's really interesting, and where that can send your head is really worthwhile exploring. And for us, grabbing a different instrument, and instead of just always going for a guitar, then here, pick up the little mandolin or the banjo instead, or sit at the piano or actually play the back of the guitar and be percussive instead. There's just ways to open your mind and your ears to flesh out something different where you wouldn't have gone originally.
This is all fantastic advice. It's gold, gold, gold for Australia as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to wrap up, just because it's a podcast or an interview series about books and music. I'm going to ask you both if you have a favorite. You probably don't have time to read at the moment because you've got a whole lot of stuff going on. But perhaps if there's a favorite book, maybe a book that inspired you as an artist or something like that. So Felicity, I'll ask you first.
Yeah, mine's really simple. It's the dictionary, because I know that sounds maybe that's a bit coy or silly, but I'm not a very good speller, and it's one of my it's a fear, actually, when I am writing with other people, that they'll find out that I'm a terrible speller. So the dictionary, and I tell the kids is, I'm always going, here's the dictionary, and let's look at a word above the word we're after and a couple of words under the word we're needing. And that is yes, my favorite go-to book. And now that I have Josh too, I don't go to the dictionary as much. I tend to ask Josh.
Josh, do you have a favorite book?
Look, I have been more of a voracious reader at different times in my life than others. I'm not reading a lot at the moment. Once again, this common theme keeps recurring of being time poor. But probably a book that's really inspired me over a lot of years, and it's inspired a lot of songwriters. It would be the Bible. It's there's a lot of writers that use imagery or are inspired by stories, and it's such an amazing book, whether you're looking at it from a religious level or not. As literature, it's pretty amazing, and I think the themes are so deep and fundamental and universal that it's hard not to go back. Like you could always go back to that well and find inspiration to endless amounts of it. So that's probably a book that over the years I've had more of an affinity with on a continual basis than any other.
Yeah, two great recommendations, and both great tools as well, I think.
Is in the Bible. Thank you.
I think it's great. Yeah.
How about us?
But look, you, as I
Has
said,
anyone else said those two? Hey?
No. Yeah, but you are prolific and beloved songwriter, so that advice should be taken very, very seriously. And if people want to find your wonderful music, they can, of course, find it on streaming services. I'm sure there are CDs as well, and they can go to your websites. Felicity Urquhart and Josh Cunningham, what a privilege. I almost mucked up that word, privilege, and a pleasure to talk to you both. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Sophie.
Right back at you. Thank you.